Welcome back to the podcast. We are so happy to have Nir Efrat on the pod with us today. Nir is a pioneering force in the gaming and digital entertainment industries with over 25 years of experience shaping the future of interactive experiences. He currently serves as the CEO of Virtually Human Studio, the company behind groundbreaking projects like Zed, which is redefining ownership and engagement in the digital realm. Before joining Virtually Human Studio, Nir held leadership roles at some of the world's most influential gaming companies. As head of mobile gaming at Take-Two Interactive, he oversaw top studios generating over $300 million in revenue. He also served as CEO of Dots, where he tripled revenue and profitability, and also led global studios at King, the powerhouse behind Candy Crush. All of you know Candy Crush. His expertise spans from mobile gaming and esports to blockchain-based digital economies. He has a background in software development for the Israeli Air Force and an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management. Nir brings a unique blend of technical innovation and business acumen. Today, we're going to benefit from his insights on the intersection of gaming, ownership, and Web3. And I'm very excited to welcome him to this conversation on Reimagine Ownership. Welcome, Nir.
Hey, Dan, good to be with you.
So I want to jump right in. I gave a little overview of your background. Maybe walk us through a few of those highlights, how you began your career, and what motivated you to want to go straight into this intersection of gaming and entertainment.
Sure, it's quite a long journey. So I started as an engineer by training and by roles. Most of my first few roles were all around engineering leadership in different industries and different space, going from security into networks, telecommunication. But then about 15 years ago, I made a very pivotal change into gaming. I found it a very cool, very engaging, and exponentially growing space. And I found it really captivating and exciting. So I moved into gaming. My first roles were around real money gaming, which might be relevant in the future. And that was a good head start and a good into the industry, which led me into King back in 2014. I moved to London, where I was leading the London studio of King. Everyone knows King. It was the Candy Crush company, but also had many other big hits like Farm Hero Saga, Bubble Witch Saga. I was leading some of the biggest studios of King in London, Barcelona, Seattle, China. We got acquired by Activision at that time, which was a great turn. And 3 years later, I moved here to New York, where I'm based now, to lead Dots, who was a really extremely creative and fun studio that had a very successful game, Two Dots. We scaled the company, grew the company, sold it to Take-Two Interactive in 2020, where I stayed for 2 more years leading their mobile business. Then I made the turn back into the startup world, which is leading us to VHS. Which I joined about a year and a half ago to lead Zed Run and our new products that are coming up now. So that's my background in a nutshell.
Cool. And I'm always interested in the topic of career transitions.
Yeah.
How did you apply for? Was it a friend who said, I really think there's an interesting opportunity here? Because our careers are typically this weaving narrative. So you have those pivotal data points. What was the pivotal step that allowed you to break into this arena?
Well, I would love to say that it was carefully crafted and strategically planned, but it wasn't. Lots of it was anecdotal or incidental, or someone that told me about something, or someone that reached out to me. The big move was definitely from engineering roles into big management roles in gaming. I did find gaming, as I said, a really, really interesting space. It's a space that touches many, many people. It's all about engagement, experiences, data, creativity, product design, lots and lots of things that come together in one space, which I find extremely interesting and challenging and fun. So it is about entertainment and fun, but also a lot about like real good product strategy, data analytics. So I think the most pivotal change I had was going into gaming, and then I just went from one role to another, based on someone talking to me, someone getting me excited. And then the last pivotal change was going from the Web 2 space into the Web 3 space, which I hope it's not going to be such a big such a big difference, and it's going to be all combining into big gaming space soon.
So, some people are familiar with Zed because they use the platform. Others are familiar with Zed because the New York Times had run an in-depth article. I remember that. Digital horses are the talk of the crypto world.
Yeah.
Horse racing meet NFT mania on Zed Run, a digital platform
Yeah.
where some top steeds are fetching six-figure sums. Tell us a little bit about your journey with VHS. We got introduced to VHS through mutual friends in our ecosystem a number of years ago. We know that the team was originally based in Australia. Your onboarding is moving the center of gravity a bit. So tell us how that process has unfolded, and a little bit of Zed 1.0, and then take us to Zed of today.
Yeah. So Zed was a phenomenon. Zed was one of the biggest NFT games, if not the biggest one at the time. We're going back to the big days of 2020 and 2021, where NFTs were introduced, games like Top Shop and others. People started being interested in NFTs. People were interested in Web3. And Zed was very unique in the sense of it was one of the only games that had real utility. Many of the games at the time started by, we're going to sell you some NFTs. Here's some gear or some avatars, or here's a piece of land. And one day you can use it in a game, maybe. Many of those promises never came to fruition. Never of the promises happened. And that was one of the things that made NFTs eventually turn south, because it was all speculation, and it was people buying the thing not because they're excited about the game or about the experiences, but they're excited about the possibility of selling it immediately to people that wanted to sell it immediately, to people who want to sell it until you run out of those people. Zed was very different at the time because it offered a real game. It offered utility. It offered an experience. You can buy those virtual horses, and then you can race them. You can race them. You can win from racing. You can breed them and create new virtual horses that can race. You create your stable of many horses. People had dozens of horses. You can trade them. You can optimize their performance. So that was very different, and that drew a lot of attention at the time, which you allude to. The New York Times, the CNBC, lots of big outlets were very interested, and the game got quite massive success at the time. We were selling horses for almost $50 million. Horses were sold for really, really high prices, which at the time looked really crazy. Now it does look crazy as well. I think it was part of the problem. And then we're going into the turning point where things started to change. The NFT market as a whole turned. Many things contributed to that. The ETH dropped in value. Crypto as a whole became less attractive. And as I mentioned, when you have those big speculation bubbles, they tend to burst. And many of those bubbles bursted. And then people ran out of other people to sell their NFTs to, which was obviously a very big problem if the foundations and the fundamental assumption of the game is I need to keep selling to other people instead of I want to keep playing. So Zed went into a little bit of a spiral. They wanted to change the game. They started to react to community. Community turned against the developers and the team in a way that now I'm looking all from outside in. Obviously, I was not there, but looking at this history, it's a perfect storm of team trying to do the right thing and trying to make lots of correction and changes. Community is upset because they have lots of assumptions and expectations. And then you go into the spiral of a big downturn, and everyone became quite sour and upset. That obviously leads to more people leaving the game, people making more changes in the game, and more people leaving the game. So it was a really unfortunate spiral that all Web3 products were going through, which is leading us to 2023. One of the investors of VHS Lab, Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z, approached me and asked me to take a look and see if I'm interested in coming on board and take over the CEO role. As I mentioned, I have a little bit of a reputation, someone who's taking over a startup from founders. That's what happened at Dots in 2018. And that worked very well for the founders and the company and myself. That was a really happy story. There was a whole win-win. So they were hoping to replicate that. And the founders were very happy to relinquish or to hand over the leadership of the company to someone else with more experience. As you mentioned, then the company was based mostly in Australia at the time, so that was a complication. I went to Melbourne, I met the founders. We talked for a very long time, for a few months, about the idea of me coming on board. And in October 2023, I agreed to come over and really see how we can change and turn the company back into growth. And that's what happened then I can talk a little bit about the product and what happens
Cool.
inside.
I want to jump into that.
Yeah.
You mentioned A16Z. So
Yeah.
we know that they, along with the Chernin Group and Redbeard Ventures, had led a $20 million round in the business. It was announced in 2021. So the company had received capital from investors. They had raised money through the sale of these in-game assets and the horses and some of the in-game mechanics. Like you pointed out, the developers began this in 2018, so they were already a couple years in by the time the NFT craze really took shape. They were well positioned for it. But we fast forward for all the reasons you've painted. Many of us that are in this space know that there has been boom and then there has been bust. And they bring in the cleanup hitter. So you have a successful track record of doing this. Tell us, even before we jump into what the future for Zed today looks like, your analysis, your calculus, because you were approached to explore this possibility and you're going through your own diligence, your own machination. What were those factors that you were contemplating on whether this is something that Nir wants to dedicate his time and energy and hair to helping?
It's a really good question. I spent a very long time thinking about that and running my due diligence. And I kind of have a playbook of how I do that. And I always start with a product and the strategy. And I try to see where the product is and think is there a path from where it is now into a successful offering, into a successful proposition. Then I look into how the company is operating. I look at how the company is performing. I look at the team, and really figuring out what will need to change and can I found some bits and pieces that I can work with. So let's start with the product. So I, as a Web2 old guy, I said, okay, let's do it. Let's go and onboard myself onto Zed Run and get this. And I set myself up with a wallet because I did not have a wallet at the time, and that was like a whole day project. And I needed to take a picture with my passport and my face, and there were errors, and then I managed to do it. So there's a wallet, and then let's get myself into this, and I need to buy a horse. I needed 3 different currencies to buy a horse. I needed the ETH, the wrapped ETH, and I needed gas. I say, I need what? What is gas? And I was very foreign into that. That felt very foreign to me. I say that is a really, really, really complicated experience. And again, coming from a place like King and in mobile gaming, everything is about what we call FTUI, first time user experience. It all needs to be smooth. And when you work on a mobile game, you optimize the first 5 minutes for months and thinking, this is not the best first time user experience. And then I managed to get myself a horse randomly and just trying to race the horse and trying to make it work. And then looking at the website to say, that looks like a trading website. It is not a game. I said, okay. And then I started talking to the team, and they started to explain to me why this happened and that happened, and all the different ebbs and flows and turns that the company had gone through. And I started to understand why all the different changes were made in a very well honest and well-intended way at the time that led the game into a product which is not comprehensible, and I would even say impossible to be onboarded on. I would even say that the way I described it, the learning curve of the game, like many other Web3 games, was just a 90 degrees line. So not a single person that is interested in play experience will manage to onboard themselves onto that game. So that really led me into the strong and a bit dramatic revelation. And I managed to convince the team that that game might not be salvageable. However, there are lots of cool elements in the game. There is the competition, there is the ownership. And I said, can we take the elements that we're excited about the games, which is owning a horse, racing a horse, optimizing, being strategic, making it fun, and rebuild it in a way that will address all the other issues and the problems that we had. And then we did, within a few weeks from me joining, agree to take the difficult decision and sunset Zed Run and replace it with a new project and a new game that will be much, much better. And that's how Zed Champions came to life, which is the game that is going to launch this month.
I'm excited to dive into that and have you describe it in just a minute. That's never an easy process, right? It's never easy for the new guy to show up and say, I've studied what we have here. There are elements of it that are interesting. There are elements that resonate. There are elements that we can repurpose, but there's a lot here that no longer sings. How do you navigate that delicately, diplomatically, to get your constituents to say yes and give you the rein to take that pivot and build something like Zed Champions?
It's really good question, and it is very hard work. I've done those things before, but yeah, it takes time, and you need to start with the end game. Like, where do we want to be? Where does the company want to be in 3 years? Where do we need to be in 1 year? What do we have right now? And then try to really draw together the path from where we are now to where is the set goal that we all agree on. So if, for example, we decide we want to be $1 billion valued company in 3 years, I'm just throwing a number, can we make it with 500 people playing the game right now? And once we agree on that, it is highly unlikely. And when a team is used to engaging with the same players and engaging with the same situation and going through all those incremental changes, then it's really hard to take the 40,000 feet view on things. But when you zoom out and you think, okay, this is where we need to be. This is what we have right now. It's not where we were 3 years ago. We have this number of players. New people cannot go into this game. And I managed to get everyone agree on that. It's going to be impossible to get new people on board because what I described earlier, it's really convoluted, it's complicated, it's not accessible, it's not friendly. And from can we get the growth from the existing people that are playing the game right now? And the answer is it's mathematically impossible. So to get back into growth, to get the company to growth, we need to really start anew. We need to start a new game. And then we need to take care and be respectful and thoughtful and generous with the existing community, with the legacy community, with everything, because I got all the concern. And again, it's a very Web3 space, thing that people are really are scared and terrorized sometimes by the players and the community because, as I said, relationship might got fraught and intense. But I thought we can find solutions to all of that, and we can bring them over with us. And there are ways to address and solve that problem. But we also need to think how we bring new people, and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of new users that we need to get to that goal that you all want to get to. And then you just go by being very, a combination of being very analytic and logical, but also have the empathy to what the team has gone through, to the community, to the people. So having the combination of both, I think, can get a team into that. But that was many weeks of conversations, of in-person conversations, to get to the point that we need to let go, and we need to start going to this very left field, scary journey that I was offering to them.
And how do you optimize the internal resources? Not only did you inherit an existing game and an existing platform, you inherit existing team members, existing engineers, developers, many of whom were present at creation and feel very strongly about Zed 1.0. Now you're going to embark on a new journey. How do you right size the ship and steer in a new direction simultaneously?
So it's always a combination of a few elements, a few things that you do. You first find your allies in the team, people that really want to align themselves with the new ideas, a new strategy, and you elevate those. You elevate those, the people that will be your partners, the people be your allies within the team. Then you add new people into the team. I hired a new head of product in the West Coast, a really great, capable, smart guy. You hire more people that will be helping, injecting some fresh blood and fresh ideas into the company. And then for the rest, it's really a choice that people have to make. It's Are you excited? Are you on board? Are you on board with this new direction? And some will be, and some won't be, and that's also okay. When there is a shift in strategy and a shift in leadership, not everyone has to be on board, and it could be a natural point for old guard or some people to move on. So that's kind of the playbook that I had at Dots, and that's what I did here. It's elevating key people from the team, getting new blood, and then see who else wants to be on board, and maybe replace some of them with new people. And I'm not coming to clean house. I'm coming with very open mind. I'm coming to listen. But once we all decide on this new direction, new strategy, it's up to every individual in the team to think if they're excited about that or not. And as I said, they don't have to be. It's a bit harsh, but I think it's a very natural way of managing things.
want to talk about the other constituents before we go to Zed Champions, which is some of the corporates, some of the institutional
Yeah,
backers. Zed was able to attract Stella Artois and others that became sponsors
yeah,
for the ladle on the back of the horse.
yeah.
How did you find that constituent to respond to what was happening? And do you see a vision and a path for them to
Oh,
re-engage?
absolutely. So yeah, absolutely. Zed were able to engage Budweiser, Atari, Netflix, big names, to be affiliated and aligned with and collaborating with a game. It was the time that many brands wanted to be a part of this up and coming technology of Web3 and NFTs. And then many of them had to walk away when volume went down. So it's all a games number, and many of them were actually less interested when the number of people that are actually playing the game significantly decrease. So what those partners now are looking for is volume and more people engaging. So this is what Zed Champions is trying to address, to get more people either racing, owning, or watching and engaging with those races. And many of them will be happy to come back and collaborate with us once we bring back the players, which is my top priority, to bring back more and more people into the game.
So let's dive into Zed Champions. To this point, Zed Run had been maintained, consistently stable, uh, but you began the transition in late 2024. I recall you sharing that you ran
Yeah,
a closed beta test. Feedback was quite good. There were no
positive.
technical issues. And then in early 2025, you started running larger tests, complete functionality, leading us to where we are today, beginning of March, and you're ready to launch the product. Tell us about a little of the development and what is so exciting to you and those early users about this next iteration.
Great. So Zed Champions is coming to address the main challenges of Zed Run and making it a much more engaging, fast, and even exciting experience. Zed Champions will still be based on ownership of digital horses, where you're going to breed your own digital horses. But right from now on, when you breed it, your horse automatically goes into what we call the racing pool. It's going to be a racing pool of 4,320 horses that will be racing automatically every 80 seconds. It's going to be a race every 80 seconds. Your horse will be racing twice within 24 hours period. And we're going to match the races based on the leaderboard of the racing pool. And you will have a locked value inside of your horse that will go up and down depending on the performance of your horse. So you will have strategic decisions to be made in this game in Zed Champions. You will need to know how to breed a horse. You will need to create those new horses yourself by going into an auction of breeding. You will look at the history, the performance, the database of the horses, and you will create the horse. Once it's created, it goes into the racing pool. You can help your horse perform in those races by getting it boosts. We're going to offer bundles and packages of boosts that will operate in different ways on different horses and will help the horses perform better in the race. And then you'll need to decide when it's time to retire the horse, because as I mentioned, every horse has a locked value of Zed tokens within it, and the value will go up and down. And you need to decide at some point, my horse has peaked. I'm going to pull it out, retire the horse, and extract the value to myself. Because once you pull the horse out, the horse will never race again. The horse can be used for breeding, but it will not race. And then you'll need to create new horses that will go into the racing pool. So we believe that the fast pace will make it much more interesting. The scarcity, there's only a limited capped number of horses that are racing, which can create interesting value momentum, and it has much different higher level of agency that you can get over your performance in the game. And this is what we're starting to do this month. And as you mentioned, Zed Run, the last race, ran last Friday at the end of February. And now all the horses can be traded and we're going to offer all the owners of Zed Run new horses within Zed Champions. And we can talk about it later, how we're going to make the community whole over that.
Anytime people talk about retiring horses, I can't help but think about whether the horses are slated to be sent to the glue factory.
Yeah, that's a really sad thing. And no, the horses are going to retire and have an evergreen life. Horses never die in Zed Champions. They can continue to contribute to the economy and the ecosystem by breeding. Horses don't go through menopause. Horses don't die. They can always breed more and more and create more offsprings of young, strong horses that will go into the racing pool. So yeah, we are very. It's supposed to be a happy event that you retire a horse, because also you extract the value and it goes into your wallet. Another big. Go ahead.
No, I want you. You mentioned the acronym FTUI earlier.
Yeah.
Presumably, for Zed Champions now, that first-time user experience is going to be different, because we know you're seeking to attract a much broader audience, not just the Web3 degens who wanted to be engaged in racing and breeding and racetrack ownership. Talk a little bit about who you're seeking to attract now, meaning end of Q1 2025
Really?
and beyond, and how we bring them into this ecosystem anew, because this is now an enhanced and amended version of what people originally thought of as Zed.
Absolutely. Before I answer that, I will add another layer that will answer the question as well. So we think that Zed Champions is only the core of a bigger ecosystem that we can create. The horse racing is a really fun experience. We made it very much more spectacular event with new animation, new settings, new scenes, new cool looking horses. And knowing that lots of people like to watch real horse racing, we think lots of people would love to be spectators of those virtual horse races that are owned by real people. So we're adding another layer around Zed Champions, which we call Zed Pix, which we're going to be another product on top of that, which is going to be a mobile app available to anyone in the US, in which you can watch all the races, and you can place your picks on the races. You can choose for the next race. I'm going to look at the database. I'm going to look at the history. I'm going to look at the performance, and I'm going to pick the top 2 to 4 horses that will be winning in the next race. And we can offer gems as for the right choice, or we can offer real money using sweepstake model. And this is going to make the ecosystem much broader and much more available. And part of the revenues from there will be flowing back into the owners of the horses in Zed Champions, which will make them personally invested in making the ecosystem bigger and broader and available. So how do we get those people? First of all, we need to remove some of the barriers of Web3. We are not going to force people to create a wallet. We'll create a wallet for them. Now there are better tools, there are better marketplaces ways, so people do not need to go through the experience that I had to go in the summer of 2023, and get themselves three different currencies and go into a different website, or an OpenSea, or something I am not familiar with as a new user, to get a horse. You can get everything within one place. We're going to make it mobile friendly. It is mobile friendly. That's a thing that did not exist in the previous game. You could not have played it on a phone. You could have, but it was a really bad experience. It wasn't designed for a phone. Um, so having those two already remove many of the barriers. Anyone can go on their phone or any device, get themselves their first horse, and then they can start breeding new horses that will be racing in the racing pool. And on Zed Pix, it's going to be even easier. It does not require any crypto at all. It's going to be available with any payment. You can buy your soft currency through the app stores, and you can, if you want to use it with real money gaming, you can do it through our own cashier with any payment method. So this is available to anyone. So availability and accessibility is a very good, very cool thing. But then also having the first time user experience in terms of tutorial, in terms of easing people into the game, in terms of explaining what this place is, why are you here, what should you do here, what can you do here, is also a thing that we take very seriously, and we want to really support and help new people getting there. And then the last step is obviously user acquisition, get into the right channels, get into the right places, where you can get a reach and you can get lots and lots of new players coming into Zed Champions to own a horse, or Zed Pix to experience, view, and engage with the races.
I like hearing about abstracting away the technology, because it's been clear to us for a number of years that for our ecosystem, for NFTs in particular, to take off, we need to stop talking about them. When we think about music, we don't talk about the underlying technology. We didn't used to talk about 8-tracks. We didn't talk about cassettes, certainly not about CDs. We just talked about the experience. And as music went digital, there has been no point in time where a friend or my spouse has referenced MP3s. They just talk about the music and what they enjoyed. And so we know that the same will be true here. The
100%.
faster we can abstract away the technology, bring back that big red easy button, and let people fast track into the experience, I think we're we're in the right zone. I'm also amazed that there's 1.5 million annual spectators for horse racing. It remains quite popular, the second most popular sport in the United Kingdom, from what I've read, behind, of course, soccer. So tell us a little bit about your global positioning then, because while horse racing can be popular at times in the United States, there are places outside the United States, of course, where horse racing remains incredibly popular. So how do you attract such a diverse group?
Yeah, 100%. We know horse racing is very, very popular, as you mentioned, in the UK, in France, in Japan. There are many interesting products around virtual horse racing in Asia that we're seeing. So we're absolutely interested in a global reach. And that is the nice thing about Web3. You have no barriers. You don't need to worry about currencies. You don't need to worry about IP and legal rights, because it is available everywhere. So we're definitely going to reach out to and use influencers and channels in many places where horse racing is appealing, and I think it can be very global. Australia obviously is a home territory for us, so it is very popular. So we have a strategy to go in and use channels and user acquisition in many places in around the world where people love horse racing. On Zed Pix, where we're talking real money, it's obviously where compliance gets into place. So it's very important for us to be perfectly compliant with the territory where we operate. So we're going to go country by country based on what we're allowed and or what where it's completely compliant to operate. So we're going to start with the US, and then we're going to go into some countries in Europe, and then we're going to go to Asia, because it's very important in when you're talking sports betting and real money to be on the right side of compliance. So we're not going to try gray areas. We're going to go country by country and do it right.
Every time I think about horse betting and OTB, I can't help but think about that Seinfeld episode where Kramer was at the OTB watching it, taking the newspaper, starting to bang his back,
Yeah,
hoping to get his horse across the line.
I love Seinfeld references. It's a good way to tell someone's age. I'm with you. Yeah. I know all Seinfeld
Talk to us.
references.
Two last things that I want to try and cover
Yes.
with you. One, paint for us a little bit of the competitive landscape, whether it's games that are specific to horse racing or games that you think are a close corollary. How do you assess that competitive landscape
It's
today?
really good question, because we need to also decide, what are we? Are we virtual sport? Are we daily fantasy sport? Are we sports betting? So we're many different things, and we're not trying to commit to one space in particular. So on the specific blockchain based horse racing, there is one big competitor called Photo Finish, which many of the players there are also Zed Run players, and there is lots of cross references, and people go back and forth. People obviously have different virtual sports in Web3. You have virtual car racing and alike. So this is kind of where we see a little bit of competition over the Web3 and NFT players. But the bigger world where we're going to go for is definitely I would say, daily fantasy sports betting. And that's, I wouldn't say we're competing with big names like FanDuel or DraftKings or MGA. We're absolutely not in this level, but we're going to offer very specific experience and offering on virtual sports played by real people that will be appealing for people that like to engage with sports betting and apps like Fliff, for example, which is a very relevant game to us. So we're looking at different spaces, and I think we're in intersection of the Web3 space and sports betting and daily fantasy and all of those, which I think is what's making it very interesting and giving it a great potential.
Jeff Bezos likes to talk about planning ahead and writing the press release that you would like to experience at the end of the year. So when you think about 2025 as a pivotal year in this transition, what does that press release at the end of the year look like for you? And how do you measure success in this year?
Yeah, it's not a very good time to go for Jeff Bezos references, but I will answer it anyway. I definitely want to think of 2025 as the year of the big comeback of Zed, and the year we managed to answer the question of, can Web3 games make it? I think jury's still out. I think no one can point out to like too many great success stories on the space because all the issues and fundamental and structural issues I described earlier. I think it should be the year of the big comeback, and the outcome I want to see this year is many people, is tens of thousands of people coming back to own horses and race them, and we want to see hundreds of thousands of people engaging with them on Zed Pix, and I want to see many views, and I want to see great social activity, and I want to see people talking about that and creating a hype. And I want to turn also, as I said, the fraud and a little bit dark discourse over those games into something much happier. I want our Discord and social media to be a happier place, driven by fun and engagement and value. So this is kind of how I want to see 2025.
Well, we're certainly invested in your success, and we're going to encourage everyone in the Metaversal community to try out Zed Champions. I'm going to try it out myself this week and try and compete with Yossi.
I'd love to have you there.
And we will give you a full readout of who proves victorious in the short term. Thank you for taking time to walk us through this new evolution. We're all very excited about it. We continue to believe that what's old is new again, and what you're embarking on is no easy feat. So we admire what you've done so far, and wish you continued success. So look forward to touching base again later this year and seeing how things are progressing. Good
Thank
to be
you
with
so much, Dan.
Thank you, Nir.
Good to be. Thank you for having me. Okay, bye-bye.